Hello, this is Grant Hughes of Grant Hughes Investigates on YouTube. Please hit that like button, share, and subscribe. If you've been watching my channel, back in November of 2021, I covered the unknown serial killer case of the Connecticut River Valley killer. Now, in that case, the victims are Kathy Milliken, Mary Elizabeth Critchley, Bernice Cordamanchi, Ellen Fried, Eva Morse, Linda Moore, Barbara Agnew, and an attempted killing, but a survivor, but a victim nevertheless, is Jane Boroski. She was actually pregnant when she was stabbed dozens of times. Now, there's a house that they just served a search warrant on Ayers Road. And the house is the house just off to the right there in brick. And that is 1 Ayers Road, and it is owned by an individual named Jeffrey Champagne. Now, I don't know if Jeffrey Champagne has anything to do with all these homicides. However, he's an interesting person nevertheless. So let's go back in time a little bit and take a look at each of the victims. So here is an article regarding Kathy Milliken. It says a group of New London residents has contributed $5,400 to a reward fund for information to the stabbing death of Sunapee woman whose murder has remained unsolved for more than 2 years. So that must have been a 1978 article. The only original article I could find was this really tiny one where it says birdwatcher Kathy Milliken, 26, of Sunapee, New Hampshire, whose body was found in the Chandler Brook Wetland Bird Sanctuary, died of multiple stab wounds, an autopsy revealed yesterday. Attorney General Thomas Rass said the autopsy showed she died from stab wounds in the neck, chest, back, abdomen, and thighs. Her body was discovered by state police bloodhounds in the bird sanctuary after her husband reported she failed to arrive home when expected. And this is back in 1978. The next victim is Mary Elizabeth Critchley. But before we get to the next victim, let me tell you something that is interesting about the house or the individual, Jeffrey Champagne. I looked him up on various newspaper sources and I found this information. It's crazy. So his father, this is back in 1983. Well, his father and mother both died, but let's start with his mother. Mrs. Eleanor Pat Champagne, 57, of RFD 1, died at her home Friday of a sudden illness. But listen, it said she died at her home Friday of sudden illness. Okay? So that was October of 1983. Then January 16th, 1984, which is about 3.5 months later, Philip Champagne, 54. Now, 57 is really pretty young, and 54 is young. And also, this one is Route 103, so perhaps they were separated at some point, or divorced. Kelleyville died Saturday, was pronounced dead on arrival Saturday at the Newport Hospital after a sudden illness. Sudden illness. So you have 2 sudden illnesses. Then, interestingly, just after Mrs. Robert Champagne passed away, on October 1st, 1983, her mother passed away. Mrs. Ida M. Lawrence died Saturday at it's hard to read the name of it, but it says after a long illness, it sounds like. So this one might be natural, but these 2 here seem very suspicious. But who knows? Maybe something helped induce this lady to pass away a little bit sooner too. So then we have 1, 2, 3 individuals, all dead. 3 of his 2 parents and 1 living grandparent all died in a 3-month period. He had done 2 killings prior. If this is the killer, we don't know for certain if Jeffrey Champagne is the actual killer, but there were 2 killings, Kathy Milliken and Mary Elizabeth Critchley back in 1981. So let's take a look at Mary Critchley first here. A partially decomposed woman's body found by woodcutters August 9th has been identified through dental records as that of a Bristol, Connecticut woman, state police said Tuesday. A police spokesman said an investigation will continue into the cause of death of Mary Elizabeth Critchley, 37, of Forestville section of Bristol. And this article was September 16th, 1981. And that's the date of the article. August 9th is the date that, as you see right here, that she has, was been identified as being killed. And I brought up that last one because the killing stopped for 3 years. Then, as you can see right here, after these 3 deaths here of his 2 parents and a grandmother, he's all alone at this point. And look at what he put out in the newspaper here. And as you can see right here, it says, "I am the last of my family. Age 32 and unmarried. Jeffrey Philip Champagne. New Hampshire Singles Network. Bringing people together since 1981." Now, as you can see right here, this actually has multiple ads that he placed in. It looks like, this one's May 27th, May 22nd, May 29th. And I guess I cut off the dates on these, but they're right around that same time period. And so these took place, those ads took place 1 month after Jane Boroski's failed murder attempt. So I'm not saying, I don't know 100% if the Connecticut River killer is Jeffrey Philip Champagne. However, these are some interesting elements here, that both of his parents seemed to die suspiciously. I think they should exhume those 2 bodies and see how they actually died, since these were, sudden illnesses. Like, what was the illness? They're not being described. Sudden illness. Both his parents at very young ages, 57 and 54, and then the grandmother and the mother of Eleanor, his mother, died just after she did, and then his father died. So all 3 of the living grandparents that were still alive were all dead within a 3.5 month period. That seems very suspicious to me. So let's go. This is the first murder after the death of all 3 of his, 2 parents and 1 grandparent. And this one is Bernice Courtemanche, a Claremont woman whose remains were found by a fisherman, died from stab wounds, and police are treating the death as a homicide. Now, this was April 24th of 1986. However, she died 1984 on May 30th. Bernice Courtemanche, 19, died of numerous stab wounds according to a forensic exam conducted by Dr. Henry Ryan, Maine's medical examiner. New Hampshire had no medical examiner, so suspicious death cases often are sent to Ryan's office in Augusta, Maine. The victim's skeletal remains were found last weekend by fishermen in the woods off Cat Hill Road in Newport. She was identified by dental records. Now they were probably able to determine she was stabbed by looking at the skeletal remains and finding nicks on bones between ribs, etc. There was no flesh left to be able to determine that. Courtemanche's body may have been at the site since she disappeared in May of 1984, said Craig Swope of the New Hampshire Attorney General's office. So that was the first murder at the death of his parents and grandmother. Then in 1984, just 2 months after that, the killer seems to have really picked up the pace of the murders. So in July 20th, Ellen Fried, she was killed. I don't have any newspaper articles on that. Then on July 10th, Eva Moore was killed. And perhaps the other body mentioned in here is Ellen Fried. But I don't have a way to determine that. The body was found early Friday morning by 2 loggers in woods off a road in Unity. It was identified through dental records as that of Eva Marie Morse, who was 27 when she disappeared from Charlestown last July 10th. Muss said that Moore had last been seen hitchhiking on Route 12 northbound. Moore's death is being treated as a homicide. And now there's a gap of 10 months where an individual named Linda Moore was killed on May 15th, 1986. And it says, a 36-year-old mother of 2 was found stabbed to death in her home Tuesday morning, only a half hour before her children came home from school, police said. Linda Moore was discovered at about 3 p.m. by her husband, Stephen L. Moore. Vermont State Police said there were no solid suspects and they gave no motive for the slaying, which occurred at the couple's home on Route 121. My wife's dead, said stunned Moore, standing on his front lawn. She's stabbed to death in the house. I'd rather talk about it tomorrow. But that was 1986, May 15th. Then, January of 1987, Barbara Agnew. Foul play feared in the disappearance of Barbara Agnew. And there was an article in January 16th of 1987. Then in March, articles came in that were saying body found, maybe that of Barbara Agnew. The body of a young woman, believed by police to be that of Norwich resident Barbara Agnew, was found near a stream bank off Advent Hill Road Saturday by several hikers. Police say they strongly suspect foul play, but would release no further details. And she too was stabbed. Authorities say Agnew stabbed to death. Barbara Agnew of Norwich, whose body was found Saturday after an 11-week search, was fatally stabbed in the neck and stomach, according to an autopsy performed Sunday. Agnew's body was discovered Saturday afternoon lying under an apple tree near Advent Hill Road, a remote lane in Heartland. State medical examiner Eleanor McQuillan ruled the death a homicide, and state police are searching for clues to the killer. Agnew was stabbed repeatedly in the neck and stomach, she said. So multiple stab wounds, and that seems to be the MO of this killer. Then there was another attempted homicide, and that was of Jane Boroski. And she was pregnant, and this happened in 1988 on April 6th. And then apparently there have been no other homicides that they've associated with the Connecticut River Valley killer that I'm aware of, but maybe there's more. There was a mention of Maura Murray even in the recent articles. Let's take a look at this.
We're live in Newport. Hannah Cotter, WMUR News 9.
This was out of the blue today. I did not expect this.
Investigators tell us they're searching for physical evidence relating to a cold case, but they have not said which unsolved case that is.
These are court-authorized search warrants.
Yeah, the police aren't saying what cold case it is, but they told family, and that's made its way out to the media.
That are under seal, and we can't discuss what the cases are.
Sources tell News 9 investigates the search is related to the Connecticut River Valley serial killings, which happened in the late 1970s and 80s. This afternoon, we saw investigators taking pictures of what appeared to be an old rug.
It could be something, it could be nothing.
I mean, so that's what's interesting. If you think about it, if it turns out that it is associated with Jeffrey Philip Champagne, you know, if let's say his parents were intentionally removed from the situation, he could then use the house, since he would be the only one living there, to store items, souvenirs, even bring victims there if he needed to. And perhaps there's other killings after those first 7 that we mentioned that we're not aware of because he was more careful. We don't know at this point. But it is interesting that the parents were taken out of the scenario, and now they're looking at that house specifically for items. Perhaps he kept some items there, and you can see right there in that image they were holding up a piece of cloth, something like that. They're going through it. We don't have any word on what they may have found. Now, this is Jane Boroski now. Tonight we'll go over the whole case again.
And that's what we have to do is just wait and see.
Jane Boroski says she's keeping an open...
And there's the house. So let's go down to Street View, and you can take a look. It's right there. It's kind of covered, has like a tree barrier behind that kind of blocks the view from other people. I mean, it almost looks out of place in a way. So this is the house that we were just looking at. There's the fence that was in the background. I think if we go back to that image, you'll even see there's a little broken part of the fence. There's the house. So that shot is exactly from that exact location on Street View. Right there. There's that broken part of the fence. And so that is the house. Let's get back to this report.
In mind. She received a phone call from state police this morning giving her a heads up about the search.
They did inform me that this search warrant and the search was connected with the Connecticut River Valley cases.
Boroski was stabbed 27 times when she was 7 months pregnant in Swansea in 1988. She said a suspect was never identified in her case, but that the crime fits the profile of that serial killer.
I'm trying not to get emotional right now.
I mean, look how vicious this killer is. The one survivor, Jane Boroski, was stabbed 27 times, and she was pregnant. Now, they did say the search warrant. That means, a judge had to sign off on it. There is specific evidence that led to them being able to search this home here, and this is the home of Jeffrey Champagne, and it's related to the Connecticut River Valley killer, according to Jane Boroski herself, who was told that by police.
About it because, there have been so many people, there's been so many persons of interest over the years, no real suspects. I mean, I'm always hopeful. Yeah, that's all we have.
And again, the Attorney General's office has not yet said what case it's investigating, but other families have been notified too. Mara Murray's sister Julie says the family is aware of this search and has been in contact with investigators. Murray disappeared in 2004. We're live in Newport. Hannah Cotter, WMUR News 9.
It's interesting that they're bringing up Mara Murray. So 2004, this Jeffrey Champagne is 68 right now, so that would make him 48, and that's still right in the range of the heyday of serial killers. We don't know for certain at all if Jeffrey Champagne is the killer. However, they are executing a search warrant at his home and looking at things. That means they had some information that leads to him, or at least that house has some information in it. And the only person that's been living there for many, many, many years is the Jeffrey Champagne individual. Okay? So, wow, you guys, this is absolutely crazy. Another case that we followed a long time ago seems to be perhaps coming to some sort of resolution. We'll cover this tonight again. We'll go over the whole thing and see what else we might be able to dig up. So thank you all very much for watching. And as I always say, until next time, be safe out there. Oh, by the way, hit that like button right now, okay? And then share the video. I would really appreciate it. All right? So thanks again, and be safe out there.